Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today we are diving deep into the sands of the Nile Delta to uncover a story that challenges everything we know about the most famous object in Egyptology. You all know the Rosetta Stone. It is the black basalt icon that reigns supreme in the British Museum, the key that unlocked the silent library of the pharaohs. But in the grand detective story of deciphering the ancient world, the Rosetta Stone has a sibling that is older, wiser, and arguably much more profound. This is the story of the Decree of Canopus, a document that did not just translate a language, but attempted to tame time itself. And our story begins with a startling new chapter written in late 2025. In September of that year, the archaeological world was shaken by a discovery at Tell El-Farain, a site known in antiquity as Buto, the primordial seat of the cobra goddess Wadjet. For decades, this site had yielded modest finds, but as the Egyptian mission cleared sand from a Ptolemaic foundation, they struck something that would send shockwaves through history. It was a stela, standing over 4 feet tall, carved from golden sandstone, vibrant and miraculously intact. Its rounded top featured the winged sun disk of Behedet, flanked by royal cobras, wearing the crowns of Upper and Lower Egypt. But it was the text below that stopped the excavators in their tracks. It was the Decree of Canopus. Archaeologists have known of this decree since 1866, when a trilingual copy was found at Tanis. That version, like the Rosetta Stone, helped prove the decipherment of hieroglyphs. But the 2025 stela was different. It was monolingual. It carried the decree solely in hieroglyphs, the words of God. This is the Canopus revelation. For the first time, scholars possessed a copy of this pivotal state document, intended purely for the eyes of the Egyptian high priesthood and their gods, stripped of the Greek translation mandated for the administrative class. To understand why this stone is the Rosetta Stone of our era, we must travel back to the vibrant, dangerous world of 238 BC. The place is Canopus, a bustling coastal city near Alexandria. The air is thick with incense. Egypt is ruled by Ptolemy III, Euergetes, a warrior king at the height of his power. He had just returned from a dazzling campaign in the Near East, marching as far as Babylon and bringing back sacred statues of Egyptian gods stolen by the Persians centuries earlier. For this, the people adored him, calling him the benefactor. But beneath this golden surface, a crisis was brewing. The Nile had failed. The annual inundation needed for farming was disastrously low. Famine stalked the land. In a country where the pharaoh was responsible for cosmic order, or Maat, a failure of the river was a failure of the king. Ptolemy III and his formidable wife, Queen Berenice II, faced a potential revolt. They needed to solidify their alliance with the only power block that mattered, which was the Egyptian priesthood. These priests controlled the temples, the grain reserves, and the hearts of the people. So a great synod was called at the Temple of the Benefactor Gods in Canopus. The result was the Decree of Canopus, a masterclass in political propaganda and religious innovation that also contained a scientific revelation 2,000 years ahead of its time. The text of the decree, revitalized by the 2025 discovery, opens with a grand eulogy. It is a transactional document of the highest order. The priests recount the king's beneficence, painting a portrait of a ruler who cares for both the bodies and souls of his subjects. The hieroglyphs proclaim that the rulers have conferred many benefits on the temples of Egypt. The decree details how Ptolemy III used his own wealth to import grain from Syria, Phoenicia, and Cyprus to feed the population when the Nile failed. This was a radical act of state welfare, recorded explicitly to bind the people's gratitude to the crown. But the revelation goes deeper into theological legitimacy. The text emphasizes the recovery of the sacred statues from the Persians. This was a psychological victory. The Persians were the hated invaders who had disrespected the gods. By returning the statues, Ptolemy III was not just a Greek king, he was the avenger of Egyptian honor, a true pharaoh in the mold of the great Ramessides. In return for this bread and honor, the priests granted the royal couple unprecedented privileges, establishing a new class of priests called the priests of the benefactor gods to serve the royal cult. This integrated the worship of the Ptolemies directly into the daily rituals of every major temple in Egypt. The Greek king was no longer an overlord. He was a resident god, fed and clothed alongside Amun, Ptah, and Osiris. However, the Decree of Canopus is not merely a political contract. It is also a testament to parental grief. During the synod, tragedy struck the royal house. The young Princess Berenice, daughter of Ptolemy and Berenice, died suddenly. The death of a royal child was a delicate matter. In the Canopus revelation, we see the priests transforming this tragedy into a unifying religious event. They deified the young princess immediately, giving her the title Berenice Anase, or Berenice, Mistress of Virgins. The decree outlines, with touching specificity, the rituals to honor her. A gold statue of the princess, inlaid with precious stones, was to be placed in the Holy of Holies of the temples. The priests described a special crown for her statue, consisting of 2 ears of corn and the euros. Most poignant was the creation of a special bread cake, the bread of Berenice, which was to be distributed during her festivals. The text even dictated that the daughters of the priests would sing hymns to her, mirroring the grief of the royal parents. This humanized the distant Greek rulers, binding their personal sorrow to the ritual life of the native clergy. If the Decree of Canopus had stopped there, it would be an interesting historical footnote. But it did not. Buried in the middle of the text is a paragraph that qualifies as one of the greatest what-ifs in the history of science. The ancient Egyptians were the masters of time. They had invented the 365-day solar calendar millennia earlier. Their civil year was simple and rational, consisting of 12 months of 30 days, followed by 5 epigomenal days added to the end of the year. But there was a flaw. The true solar year is not 365 days, it is approximately 365.2425 days. Those extra quarter days, ignored by the civil calendar, accumulated. Every 4 years the calendar slipped back by 1 day against the seasons. Over centuries, this wandering year meant that the summer festivals would eventually drift into winter. The rising of Sirius, the star that heralded the Nile flood, would slowly disconnect from the New Year's Day it was supposed to mark. The priests at Canopus, the greatest astronomers of their day, knew this. In the Decree of Canopus, they proposed a solution that was breathtaking in its simplicity and accuracy. The decree reads that in order that the seasons may correspond to the established order of the world, and that it may not occur that some of the national festivals kept in winter may come to be kept in summer, the sun changing 1 day in every 4 years, from now on, 1 day, a feast of the benefactor gods, shall be added every 4 years to the 5 additional days. This was the invention of the leap year. In 238 BC, 2 centuries before Julius Caesar and the Romans supposedly invented the Julian calendar, the Egyptians had solved the problem. They legislated a 365.25-day year. This section of the decree is the Canopus revelation in its purest scientific form. It was a moment of supreme intellectual clarity. However, history is cruel. The reform failed. The Egyptian populace and the conservative factions of the priesthood resisted the change. The rhythm of the wandering year was too deeply embedded in tradition to be altered by a royal decree. The leap year was abandoned, only to be resurrected by Augustus Caesar in 26 BC, surviving today as the Coptic liturgical calendar. But the Canopus decree remains the smoking gun, the proof that the leap year was an Egyptian invention, not a Roman one. For most of the modern era, the Rosetta Stone has hogged the limelight. Discovered by Napoleon's troops in 1799, it provided the first real foothold for decipherment. But the Rosetta Stone, created in 196 BC, is actually a sequel to the Canopus decree. It mimics the Canopus formula, with a synod of priests, honors for the king, and a trilingual inscription. In many ways, the Rosetta Stone is an inferior copy. The workmanship is rougher, and the stone itself is a broken fragment. The Canopus decree, particularly the Tanis stone discovered in 1866 and the new Tell El-Farain stela of 2025, are superior in almost every way. When Carl Richard Lepsius discovered the Tanis copy of the Canopus decree in 1866, the world of Egyptology was in a precarious state. Jean-François Champollion had died decades earlier, and while his system was generally accepted, there were still loud detractors who claimed his readings were fantasy. The Canopus decree silenced them forever. Because it was much longer and more perfectly preserved than the Rosetta Stone, it allowed scholars to cross-check Champollion's alphabet with absolute precision. If the Rosetta Stone was the key, the Canopus decree was the door. It offered a wider vocabulary, more complex grammar, and a clearer Greek translation. The 2025 discovery takes this comparison to a new level because the new stela is inscribed only in hieroglyphs. This is highly significant. In the trilingual versions, there was always a suspicion that the hieroglyphic text might be a clumsy translation of the Greek original, essentially a Greek thought in Egyptian dress. But a monolingual hieroglyphic version suggests a text composed in Egyptian, for Egyptians. It offers linguists a control sample to study the evolution of the Egyptian language in the Ptolemaic period, without the interference of translationese. It is a pure sample of the priestly mind. Let us look closer at the artifact that has redefined this revelation for the 21st century. The 2025 Tell El-Farain stela is a masterpiece of the late Egyptian style. Unlike the gray-pink granite of the Tanis stela, this new find is carved from a warm, luminous sandstone, likely quarried from Gebel el-Silsila in the south. The preservation is startling. The hieroglyphs retain traces of their original blue pigment, a color symbolizing the heavens and the Nile. The text is arranged in vertical columns, a traditional format that harkens back to the Old Kingdom, lending the decree an air of archaic authority. The carver was a master. The birds and human figures in the hieroglyphs are detailed to the point of miniature art. One detail has captivated scholars regarding the determinatives, which are silent symbols at the end of words, used for Ptolemy and Berenice. In this version, they are given divine determinatives, usually reserved for major deities like Osiris or Isis, not just deified mortals. This suggests that, in the specific temple where this stela stood, the cult of the Ptolemies had achieved a level of integration that was far deeper than previously thought. The location of the find is also telling. Tell El-Farain was a major administrative center. Finding a high-quality copy here confirms that the decree was indeed published, effectively across the delta, not just in the major hubs of Memphis or Tanis. It shows the reach of the Ptolemaic propaganda machine. Why does the Canopus revelation matter today? Why should we care about the political maneuvering of a long-dead Greek king and a calendar reform that failed? First, it is a lesson in the continuity of knowledge. The leap year we use today, the extra day in February that keeps our seasons aligned, is a direct descendant of the intellectual labor of the priests at Canopus. Every time you check the date, you are living in the world they designed. Second, it is a testament to the complexity of multicultural societies. Ptolemaic Egypt was a place where Greek kings and Egyptian priests danced a dangerous tango of power. The Decree of Canopus shows us how they maintained peace through mutual respect, religious syncretism, and the exchange of bread for honors. It is a model of political compromise that resonates in our own fractured world. And finally, the 2025 discovery is a reminder that the book of history is never closed. For 150 years, we thought we had solved the Canopus decree. We had the Tanis stone, we had the translations, and we became complacent. Then, the earth shifted at Tell El-Farain, and a new chapter opened. The Canopus revelation is not just about a stone, it is about the endurance of human thought. It is about a king who wanted to be a god, a princess who became a star, and a priesthood that tried to capture the sun. As we stand before the new stela, reading the fresh, blue, painted glyphs of the benefactor gods, we realize that in Egypt, the past is never truly past. It is merely waiting to be revealed. Thanks for listening to G Fun Facts Online.